What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Cash Process. I am your host, Ben Hostler. I am solo today. Anthony is traveling. So, to whoever, obviously, I tweeted out this morning, hey guys, I'm doing the Cash Process today. You guys have any DFS questions? The first reply was, how do we get Anthony off the show? So, thanks for that. That actually made me laugh. But your wish was granted. He's not on the show this week. I'm not sure where exactly he is. I just know he's traveling. So you guys get to listen to my nasally voice for the next 20 to 30 minutes. I am doing this video a day later. It's Wednesday instead of Tuesday, so I don't want to spend too much time on last week. Just gonna kind of quickly recap that, and then we'll move on and I'll start previewing this week. I do have the projections portal for week 4 up per usual. This is premium feature. You can access this by purchasing a package at dfskarma.com. And most importantly, guys, like the video. You guys have showed out this season. You've been given a lot of love on this video, all of our videos in general. I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Anyone that reads my articles or watches my videos, I am more grateful than you guys will ever know. So thank you and keep it up. Like the video. It only takes a few seconds of your time. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications bell so you know whenever these videos are posted. With that being said, we can kind of hop in here. So like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on last week just because it's a little bit later in the week and we're focused on week 4. But I lost on DraftKings, dropped to 2-1 for the season, but I made one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in the last few seasons. So it was Sunday morning. I had my core plays typed in for subscribers. Everything was set. All my lineups were locked. I hopped on the show with Sam Sunday morning, per usual. I'm sure a lot of people that watch this video also watch our stream on Sunday mornings answering questions. I had everything locked and loaded. And towards the end of the show, we get that news that Devontae Booker was out for the Giants, which obviously spoke to how confident the Giants were in Saquon Barkley's health. I knew he was going to be chalky. I knew he was projecting well, and he was not in my cash game lineup. So after the stream, I fire up these projections right here that you see on your screen. I saw, obviously, with the updates that had been pushed through, that Barkley was projecting even better. I knew he was going to be high owned. So I ended up making a 3v3 decision, and in my lineup, I moved Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Higbee to Saquon Barkley, Marvin Jones, and TJ Hawkinson. So not only did I break my cardinal rule of not changing my lineup with less than an hour until lock, but I also cost myself the win. My original lineup scored 195 DraftKings points. So if you guys remember on this video last week, I told Anthony I've been winning, but I've kind of just been cruising along, winning cash games. Like I felt like I was due for a big win, and 195 would have been that big win. I would have cashed pretty highly in all the tournaments I had. I would have won probably all my head-to-heads. It would have been a really big week for me, but I ended up losing because of that 3v3 decision. And it's not even so much that I'm mad anymore. Obviously, Sunday I was pretty upset throughout the afternoon, but more importantly, I once again was on the right plays. Right, for the third week in a row, I put myself in position to win. I just ultimately made a bad decision. And I had already made a bad decision by playing Justin Fields, something I never do, spend down at quarterback. And I would have scored 195 even with making one mistake by playing Justin Fields. That just shows how hard it is to win at DFS. It's hard to make 2 mistakes and win. But I don't want you guys to get discouraged. I want you guys to know that this happens to myself, Anthony, everyone, no matter who they are that plays DFS. This kind of stuff happens to us too. If you haven't started out this season that great, if you're 1-2, 0-3, don't get too down. Don't try and chase your losses. Practice good bankroll management. Trust the process. Trust your research, and just know that if you put yourself in positions to win eventually, um, you should win if you're constantly putting yourself in that position. So I've kind of put that behind me. I'm not too mad about it anymore. I know that I was on the right plays, and I'm going to take that energy to this week. And I have a chance to go 3-1. Which, if you told me before the season that you start out 3-1 in cash games, that's a fantastic start to the season, right? Like that's really good. You really can't complain about that. So we're going to move on to this week. I just really wanted you guys to know that, like, if you've started out this season poorly, like, don't stress too much about it. Don't over enter. Don't chase your losses. Just focus on each slate, taking one slate at a time, and know that you're putting yourself, you trust your process, and you're going to put yourself in position to win every Sunday. So let's get into this week 4 slate. We have a little bit more injury news this week since it's a day later, so that's helpful. But I'm going to be on the video with Sam tomorrow, the NFL DFS picks video, where we kind of go position by position, a little bit deeper into our favorite plays, our favorite pivots, stuff like that. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet and just preview each positions, especially since I'm just on here talking to myself. So we're going to start off at quarterback here. Patrick Mahomes is the highest priced quarterback at 8,100. You can see as the top projection. Good play. Certainly have no issues with him whatsoever. But the two guys that stick out to me upon first looking at this slate are Kyler Murray at 78 and Josh Allen at 8K. Kyler Murray on the road, tough matchup against a good Rams defense, certainly. That's very real. But he just shouldn't be 7,800. I don't care about the matchup. He should always be over 9K. I think Mahomes also, and Josh Allen to that point, and Lamar, I think all those guys should always be over 9K. Like, you're getting them at a discount at these price tags. 7,800 is too cheap. If you look at what he did last week, 22.5 DraftKings points, you might say, that's not that good. That's literally his floor. He had 22.5 DraftKings points and didn't throw a touchdown pass. That's remarkable. I truly think 20 to 22, that's really his floor. And I also think it's unlikely that he doesn't throw. Like, I think it's unlikely that he throws for 0 touchdowns again. I don't think that's going to happen. So I do think he is still like the number one play for me, even in a tough matchup. I trust his floor. I trust the offense that he's in. And I think they're going to put up points. So I like him at 7,800. And then Josh Allen, I do think Josh Allen's going to be higher owned than Kyler. This is why it pays to read my article every week. It's free, dfskarma.com, the slate breakdown. Josh Allen was the cover boy of my week 3 article. I wrote him up in the article and talked about how that was my favorite tournament game stack. Both Washington and Buffalo were playing very fast. I thought it had a good chance to go over its total, and I thought it was going to be low owned, and there was going to be a lot of points scored, and that's exactly what happened. Josh Allen was like 4 to 5% owned in the lineup I made with him. He dropped 40 DraftKings points, threw for 4 touchdowns. He's going to be significantly higher owned this week against Houston. So it pays to get in early. Read that article every week. But I do think he's going to be probably the highest owned option. It's hard to argue with him at home against Houston. It was pretty clear that, like, he wasn't bad, right? He had a couple down weeks to start the season, but the usage was there. He was throwing the ball deep. He was still running 5 attempts, 13 attempts. Like, it was just, he wasn't finding the end zone, and he found the end zone last week 4 times. So I think he's probably going to be the highest owned option. I really can't argue with him. I think him and Kyler are the best plays. You can make the case for some other guys. If Anthony were here, I think he would want to bring up Kirk Cousins at 6,400. I know it's against the Browns, but at home, he's been really good this season, man. I'm one of the only Kirk Cousins defenders out there, I feel like. But, I mean, he's topped 25 DK points in each of his first 3. I think that game, Minnesota-Cleveland, I think both teams are going to put up points. And I like him. So I think Anthony would want to bring him up. Anthony would probably bring up Dak Prescott as well at home against Carolina. So I think those guys that you could definitely consider, but I think Allen and Kyler are still very much the top plays for me. The only cheap guy I'm going to mention is Taylor Heineke. I don't, like I just said, I really don't spend down at quarterback, but I do think Taylor Heineke is going to be in my cash game pool this week. I'm going to consider him leading up to the weekend. Last weekend, all I saw on Twitter and everyone's article was like Daniel Jones. That's all anyone wanted to talk about was Daniel Jones against Atlanta. Like, how could you not want to play Daniel Jones against Atlanta? The fact of the matter is, yes, it was a really good matchup. Yes, he has upside with his legs, but he's on a bad offense. It's tough for the Giants to get in shootouts when Jason Garrett and Joe Judge are coaching them. So that was like, I still thought Daniel Jones was a good play, but that's really like that's something you have to consider when you're playing someone like him. And this week, Taylor Heineke is in a much better offense with a more progressive offensive coordinator in Scott Turner. He has the same matchup against Atlanta, and he has upside with his legs. If you look at the last two games, 4 attempts, 8 attempts, he ran a touchdown in last week. And no one's gonna talk about Taylor Heineke this week, I feel like, but it's the same exact play, if not better. Like, I think he's a better play this week than Daniel Jones was last week, and I don't think anyone is really going to talk about him. But 5,900, I do think Taylor Heineke's in play. I'm going to consider him as we head to the weekend. If we move to running back, I'm going to pull those projections up on the screen here for those watching the YouTube video. First and foremost, at running back, first thing that stuck out, Derrick Henry, 8,800, too cheap. Way too cheap. I feel like 8,800 should not be the most expensive running back on the slate, even with McCaffrey out. I think 8,800 is too cheap. And there's three very important factors that I think are working in favor for Derrick Henry this week. Number one, we love Derrick Henry in games that the Titans are going to win, and they presumably should be winning this game against the Jets. I don't care if it's on the road. The Jets look like, once again, the worst team in football. And when the Titans win, they feed Derrick Henry. So we love him in games that they're going to win. So that's one good thing. Two, he's been catching passes. It's always kind of been his downfall, is that he isn't involved in the passing game. For like the last few seasons, like I feel like we've been saying, all we need is 3 to 4 catches a game. He's got that this season. 3 catches or more in each of his first 3 games. He's being involved in the passing game. It's a game that they should win. And it's looking like, at least like to me, for the third factor here that I think is really a boost to him, it looks like A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are not going to play in this game. So if you're telling me that they're playing arguably the worst team in football, their best 2 receivers are probably not going to play, what are they going to do? That's all the more reason to feed Derrick Henry in a great matchup. I don't see how he doesn't get 25 plus rush attempts in this game, and I think he's underpriced. So I think Derrick Henry's a lock. He's going to be in my cash game lineup, even on the road. I'm going to be playing him, and I think you should probably be playing him in cash games. Outside of Henry, Kamara, Dalvin Cook, those guys are perfectly fine. Cook especially is interesting because he's 8,100. I think he's going to be fine for this game. Kamara got a little bit more involved last week. Not worried about the matchup. I think all 3 of those guys are cash playable, but I do think Henry is firmly number 1 this week. Outside of like the top tier, Najee Harris at 6,800. I have these projections on the screen sorted by karma value, and you can see Najee Harris is number 3 in karma value as of right now. Are we going to talk about this guy having 19 targets last week? Absolutely insane passing game usage. It does look like Deontay Johnson probably going to be back for this game, but it's clear that they're going to throw him the ball. And with how their line has performed and how hard it's been for him to get yards on the ground, like just checking the ball down to him, giving some short passes makes a lot of sense. I think they're going to continue to do that. If McCaffrey or Cook or Kamara had 19 targets, I feel like that would be a much bigger deal. But I feel like people just really aren't talking about it because it's Najee Harris, but that's a really big factor. Don't care about the matchup, to be honest. I just care that he's 6,800 and he's going to get all the running back work. So I didn't think he's a good play in the mid tier, definitely. Outside of him, Antonio Gibson sticks out as too cheap at 6,100. Finally got loose for a touchdown last week. Still wasn't that involved in the passing game for whatever reason. But I kind of pointed this out in my article last week. Even though they bring McKissick in for passing downs, he's still playing over 70% of the team snaps, which is a higher percentage than someone like Nick Chubb, who's more expensive. So I still think Gibson sticks out at 6,100 in that matchup against Atlanta. Good play. I think you can use him in all formats. Chuba Hubbard, not sure what people are going to do with him. They priced him up enough that he's not like a must play at 5,800 or 5,900. I do think he'll be involved in the passing game a little bit, but he's more expensive than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I don't think Chuba Hubbard is going to make my cash game lineup, but I do want to mention him. I do think he's in play. Speaking of CEH, fumbled again last week, but they still rode him. Like they still gave him bulk of the work. And it's a good matchup. Like I know if a lot of you guys watched that Monday night game, Dallas Philly, I was on Philly. That went terrible. That's probably last week is a good week for me. I really think that Philly game was the only thing I got truly wrong. But if you noticed how the Eagles were playing defensively, they were kind of doing what the Chargers have been doing, and they've been really sitting back deep, focusing on stopping the pass and just allowing you, like just daring you to run all game, like just run on us. You can get yards running on us. So that's kind of what the Chargers do, and if you'll notice, like CEH had a good game, 17 attempts, 100 yards. Still wasn't super involved in the passing game, but you don't need him to be at 5,400. And I think like the game plan for the Chiefs is going to be similar against a similar defense in the Eagles. I think 15 plus carries is in the works for him, a couple catches. I think he's firmly in play at 5,400 again. Now, he is a little bit more expensive than he was last week, but I think he's probably the best cheap play for me as of Wednesday. And then you could throw Trey Sermon in there as well at 5K. Seattle has given up far and away the most DraftKings points to running back so far this season, 117 through 3 games. Sermon, like, yes, the 49ers are still going to mix guys in. We'll have to wait and see who's going to be active for them. But I do want to mention him at 5K. I think he's a good play. But as for right now, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, once again, is the best value. And I think he's still going to be pretty heavily involved this week. That about does it, I think, for running back. I'm going to pull up wide receivers here. While you guys are watching this, again, be sure, like the video, comment below who you're building around in cash games. I'm always curious. I always get a lot of questions after the video is posted. Comment below. I'll get in the comments throughout the week and kind of answer you guys back. So if you have direct questions, just comment below. As far as we go at wide receiver here, I think like the top play has to be Devontae Adams at 7,900. Again, this is too cheap. Like he had one bad game week 1 against New Orleans when they scored no points and their starters got benched. Last 2 weeks, 9 targets, 18 targets against San Fran, 23 and 34 DK points. He is, I believe, 4th in football right now in percentage of the Packers' air yards, getting 44% of the team's air yards. I don't know like how you can argue this. I think he should be more expensive than 7,900. I think he's going to be pretty high owned because he's 7,900, and I think he's the best cash game play at receiver if you're spending up. Cooper Kupp price is way up, 7,800. 100 cheaper than Adams. I have to lean Adams if I'm playing one of them. I do think they're both in play. Kupp's role has been legitimate the whole season. He has a big time red zone role. They're just throwing him the ball a lot. I mean, if you look at like overall targets, Adams is first in the NFL with 34. Kupp's tied for second with Darren Waller and Keenan Allen for 33. So the role is really good. I think the matchup is exploitable. I'm not worried about the price hike because he's been getting the usage to back up and warrant that price hike. So I do think Cooper Kupp is in play, but Adams definitely is the number one play for me this week. You can see on the screen here with the projections, I have it sorted by value. Once again, Amari Cooper is sticking out as a value, and I do think he's in play at 6K. The usage has been there for him. Like, he had that huge week 1, 2 down games since then. I'm not sure. I know he's banged up with the ribs and stuff. I'm not sure if, like, Cooper's going to be someone I'm going to play this week, but it's hard to argue that projection. You know they're going to be throwing the ball. So it's tough to argue that, but I think I actually, to Cooper, prefer Odell Beckham for 5,800. I think the Browns are going to have to throw in this game. First game back off injury, Odell commanded 9 targets, got to 77 yards, mixed in for a rushing attempt. Like, they're going to get him the ball in different ways, but I think he can easily, with Jarvis Landry out, he can average double-digit targets per game with Landry out. I think he's going to be the main target for Baker. I think they're going to make a point to get him the ball, and I think 5,800 is too cheap. So Odell is actually probably my favorite mid-tier option. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to play Odell, but I do think I prefer him to Amari Cooper as of right now if I'm picking one. Obviously, this is early in my research process, but kind of first glance, I was preferring Odell over him. Moving down a little bit farther, not sure if this is a cash game play, but someone that really sticks out to me is Michael Pittman Jr. at 5,400. It's a tough matchup against Miami, which is typically a team we like to use running backs more against than receivers. But if we want to talk about usage, I mean, this guy's usage has been insane. He's just behind Adams with a 43% of the team's air yards. That's 5th in football for Michael Pittman Jr. He's getting over a quarter of the team's percentage of targets. So he's commanding a lot of targets. He's getting a lot of air yards. And they're going to have to, I don't know, like, he's going to have to find the end zone eventually, right? Like, he still has no touchdowns. Getting all that usage but not finding the end zone, that's something that we like to bank on moving forward, see a little bit better luck with the touchdowns. So I think Michael Pittman Jr. is a really good play at 5,400. Not sure if it's a cash game play, but definitely someone that I'll be looking at least in tournaments. Moving down farther, I mean, I'm not in love with any of these 4 to 5K guys. Like, I like Pittman at 54, but none of these other guys really are sticking out to me. Someone tweeted me and asked about AJ Green, 4,500. Probably not the matchup I want to use him in against LA, but it is interesting. He looked pretty dead last year for Cincy, but he has not been bad for Arizona at all. The number one cheap guy this week is going to be this Nick Westbrook-Akine guy for Tennessee. I don't know what to make of this. I don't think you really need to worry about this for cash. But if Julio Jones and AJ Brown are both out, this is basically, he's going to be the WR1. He caught a touchdown last week. He caught all of his targets, 4 for 53 and a touchdown. He's going to be the WR1. Josh Reynolds was a healthy scratch last week. I do think he'll be active for this game. But, I mean, how confident are you in Josh Reynolds? He couldn't even get on the field as the third receiver in that offense. And now, he's going to be active just because those guys are out. So you can pivot to someone like him, someone like Chester Rogers in tournaments. But I think Westbrook-Akine is going to be the highest owned. 3,200 is so cheap. Even though I really like Derrick Henry, they're still going to have to throw the ball. Someone's going to catch passes. 3,200. I would assume he's going to be pretty high owned by the time we get to the weekend. I really don't hate it. So I think he's probably the top cheap play. Looking more over the mid tier. I mean, Cooper and Odell probably are the top two. You have like that tier with CeeDee Lamb and DJ Moore is interesting. I mean, DJ Moore has just been so good. It's clear Darnold likes him. 11 and 12 targets in the last 2 games. Good matchup against Dallas. So I think he is definitely in play. And then another news note just to watch. I'm going to move on here to tight end, but Adam Thielen missed practice today, which is Wednesday. So if for some reason he looks to be trending towards out on the weekend, obviously that would bump up some other guys, but mainly it would really bump up Justin Jefferson. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Giants guys are really banged up as well. Don't really want to go out of my way to play anyone there against New Orleans, but just something to keep an eye on, could open up some value as we move on. I think overall, Adams, it looks like I'm going to be forcing in Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, and one of those other quarterbacks I talked about, and then filling in with, I mean, that Westbrook is really cheap, so that kind of helps with value if you put him in there. Like plugging in those Henry, Adams, Westbrook, that gives you 5K per with a cheap defense. Tight end. So you're looking at like 6,200. So yeah, you could probably pretty much play whatever you want, to be quite honest, which is kind of how it's been the first few weeks. Finish up at tight end. I'll pull the projections up on the screen. Travis Kelce is obviously always going to be the top play. You have Kittle there as well at 5,900, but Kelsey's kind of in a tier of his own pricing wise and just in overall projection and point wise. Like you can see on the screen now, he's Travis Kelce projected 21, next closest Kittle 13. So that's quite a jump. Hawkinson let me down last week, but I don't. They like were randomly playing Fells. I don't know really what was going on there. I didn't go back and look. I thought that was interesting. But overall, at tight end, kind of the same guys that we've been targeting. If you're not spending up for Kelsey, Logan Thomas at 4,900, I think is a good play. Tyler Higbee at 4,600, got in the box last week. I think he's a really good play. I think Noah Fant, even in the tough matchup against Baltimore, 4,300 is too cheap for Noah Fant. So I think he's a really good play. So that's 3 guys in that 4K tier. Kyle Pitts has been letting people down. I don't know what to make of that, man. He's been on the field. He's just not getting targeted. I'm not exactly sure why, but he's in play at 5K. So there's a lot of 4 to 5K guys that you can consider. If you're looking for someone cheaper, Conklin missed practice today, but I think it was like I don't know exactly what his injury is. 3,500, he would be in play for me if he's active and good to go. Other than that, I don't see any cheap guys that I really like. Someone that might get some run is Tommy Tremble for the Panthers. So he caught one ball for 30 yards last week. He's very athletic, and the Panthers just traded Dan Arnold to kind of get him on the field. I'm not sure. Like, obviously, he's going to be on the field more. I'm not like sold that he's just going to see a huge role right away. But at his price on DraftKings, I think he will get talked about most definitely. So he's in play. I actually think that Dan Arnold trade helps Terrace Marshall out a little bit. But I think Tremble might get some buzz as we move on throughout the week. For a cheap guy, he is really cheap. So you can always consider a cheap tight end like that in cash games. I think Higbee might be my overall favorite once again at 46. I mean, he plays a ton of snaps. The Rams are going to be pass heavy. And I didn't talk about Sony Michel, so I'm gonna go back and do that here before I end this video. Sony Michel, you saw him in the projections portal. He had, I think, the second highest value. He's 5,200 on DraftKings in a good matchup against Arizona. 20 attempts last week. To me, I think Darrell Henderson is going to be able to play in this game, which is just going to muddy the whole situation. But we'll say for the sake of this video and for this argument, we'll say Darrell Henderson's out. I don't think I like Sony Michel more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they're right around the same price. CEH is 200 more. So I think I'd rather play CEH. I just wanted to mention that before I ended this because I know I'm going to get questions about Sony Michel if I don't mention it. So I don't really like Sony Michel. I think Henderson's going to play, so I don't think it's going to matter. So I just want to get that away. Defense, we'll finish up there. Give away a few defensive picks here before I end the video. I mean, none of these, like, I don't want to play the Jets. Don't want to play the Texans. Don't really want to play Philly. Don't really want to play Atlanta. So you're looking at, like, I don't really play Minnesota because the Browns just don't throw the ball enough. Wow, I don't know. The defense looks rough. I guess Seattle at 2,400 maybe. I guess Atlanta. I don't know. The defense, bottom of defense looks rough. Lions, I guess if they start Fields again, that was just rough, man. Pour one out for Justin Fields this week, dude. That was just that was a pitiful NFL debut. Terrible game plan from Matt Nagy. I don't want to blame it all on Matt Nagy because it was definitely a combination of both of them. It was a combination of Fields clearly not being ready and Matt Nagy with just one of the worst game plans I've ever seen. That was terrible. So I guess if they want to roll out Fields again, or even if they throw Dalton out, I guess Lions are interesting for cheap. But I don't see a ton of cheap defenses that I love this week. I might have to get up to that mid tier and look at one of those mid tier teams. Like Packers against Pittsburgh would be interesting just because I mean Packers coming off a 4-sack game. Ben looks washed. You know that Pittsburgh's offensive line is not great. They're at home. I think Packers are interesting at 32, but I don't know. I don't see a ton of cheap defenses this week. We will save that conversation for the Sunday stream. Thank you guys very much for sticking out this video with me. Just me on here talking to myself, breaking down the positions. Drop a like, drop a comment. Tell me how I did on the solo podcast. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow, Thursday. There'll be a video uploading myself and Sam, breaking down, going a little bit more in depth to these positions, talking about our favorite plays, our favorite pivots, favorite stacks, giving out some bold calls. And then we'll have the Sunday stream. All of our content will be dropping Thursday through Friday as well. So head over to dfskarma.com for some free articles. And if you want a package, you want access to the core plays, you want to tail myself, AC, Sam, Bales, Matt, everyone, dfskarma.com. You can find that information as well. Good luck this week, and I'll see you guys on the next video.